Hello, everyone, and welcome to APL Falcons UK. We are back after a 2-week absence, unintentionally, but kind of grateful due to the fact that we scored 3 points across 2 weeks. So we've got a couple of guests on today. We're going to recap the Jags game, but just before that, seeing as we weren't here for the previous 2 fixtures, I thought I'd get brief little takes from them both in regards to what they thought about the disaster classes that were in place. So, Mark, Will, go on. Just a little minute each on what happened in the previous 2 weeks.
I'll let you go first, Mark.
I think they were kind of examples of how bad we can be. I think that it was really, really easy to be high after the Saints game. And I think that actually, what those games were kind of just a really a real big light on how bad our depth is, and actually, how much devoid of real talent that we are kind of across the roster. However, and I've said this on Twitter this week, and I'll keep on saying this from the rooftops, including this week's result. We've now bettered our win total than last year, with a worse roster, with an extremely worse wide receiving core. So although past 2 weeks have been rather hard to swallow, I still think that if this is what Arthur and Terry can do with no money and a really bad roster, I'm excited for what the future brings.
I'll take that. Go on, Will.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a little bit different in my eyes. I think the Dallas game was a little bit of a reversion back to what this team has been the last couple of years, which is when something gets out of control, it snowballs. And I think that is what a big message of Arthur Smith, not the message, because the message is weekly improvement, getting better over the course of the season. But he wants to really reinforce to players that your role every single play is important and what you need to focus on. And even if you're on the backside of a play, you've got to do your job because you never know what's going to happen. And I think that was something that the Falcons didn't do well kind of in the later years of the Dan Quinn era. He was always trying to emphasize the big plays, make the turnovers, make the sacks, get the pressure. And I think that Arthur Smith is focused really on those little details. And the Dallas game to me was a game where the details really kind of fell apart for Atlanta. And then he recognized that. He kind of packed it in the fourth quarter, and there you have it. The Patriots game, the defense, I think, really paid attention to the details well in that game. It was 13-0 in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was a huge bounce-back game for a unit that had given up 43 weeks the week before. And so I looked at that more as like the Falcons had just nothing on offense. And you highlighted, Mark, like the lack of depth. That was a key issue, and it still is for this team. It kind of bit them in that Patriots game, but I think the Falcons were much, much better defensively and much closer to the Patriots level. It's just that the offense was like maybe on that week, like the worst in the league easily. So that's where I think this Jacksonville game is more in the line of where Arthur Smith wants to be. Good defense, good enough offense, and you try to win some of these last possession games by making the critical play when it needs to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's not too much else to add, I suppose. Like you've both echoed, we kind of just fell apart, a little bit like a mentality, a little bit of everything, and those things happen. As we were just saying off camera, Will, we've just got to pray that it doesn't happen again this weekend coming up, because we've got arguably the hardest fixture that we're going to have in a long while. But let's stick to positives for a little while. So I'll let Cal take us into the Jags game so we can get out of a rut that we usually tend to go in.
Yeah, so obviously another win, which is a win's a win to me. Like, you can only beat what opponents in front of you. You see a lot on Twitter saying, "Oh, it's only the Jags," but well, what do you want us to do? Lose? Like, if we went in losing, they'd be slagging us off anyway. So win's a win. We moved to 5-6, which is like Mark said, we've won 5 games, and I think think I've seen this, and I think I said it as well. The 5 games we've won, or especially like even the Jags game, these are the games we would have lost last year as well. So I think we would have been a worse record if this was like the schedule from last year. These are the games we went on to lose, we went on to blow leads, and I think so. It's a bit of a mentality thing I think's improved throughout the season for me. And the changes come in. Everyone's got to know Arthur Smith is still a brand new head coach. Everyone's expecting absolute miracles, and to be fair, like Mark said with the roster, there's not much depth in it at all. And when obviously we got Ridley being out and a few of us being out, with Patterson last week, so 5 wins and 6 losses for me is, I think most people would have took this at this stage of the season.
I think it's a lazy conversation when people say it was just the Jags, because the same Jags that beat the Bills a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think it's a really, really lazy rhetoric. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? I think the Jags are kind of sort of mid-rebuild, relatively mediocrely coached. A friend of mine's a mad Jags fan, and I kind of hear that quite a lot. So with all due respect, you only play the team that's in front of you, and okay, great. This year, we've been pretty decent against badly coached teams. So and that's all we can ask for. And Arthur Smith's a first-year coach. If we're beating badly coached teams, then that can only get better. So I think it's a really, really lazy thing. And Trev's not a bad quarterback. Again, he's in his first year, but he's not a bad quarterback. And go back to what Will said, defense for me, especially in that fourth quarter, and we all thought it was coming. We did.
We did.
One of us was sitting there in the fourth quarter going, "Here we go again," but they didn't, and they stopped it. And again, credit where credit's due. We've got a defense that's getting better, and it's not amazing by any stretch, but they're not last year, and arguably last year when we had better players on defense. So that's my 2 points worth on the Jags.
Yeah, no, I mean, Mark, the way I think about the kind of like that lazy narrative thing is nobody was giving the Falcons any kind of like, I don't know, feel good props for losing games they should have won last year. So the Falcons don't need to apologize for winning games that, people sit there and aren't necessarily looking positively at. Like you said, you play the team on your schedule, and week to week in this league, every game is different because the team that you're playing next has the previous information that the team that you just played didn't. And they have all of everything that you did, everything that team, I think a lot about the Chiefs at the beginning of this year really kind of struggling. And one of the things that we heard late last year was after the Falcons played the Chiefs the second to last week of the season, and Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbrich kind of devised their defense to hold the Chiefs to 17 points in that game. Everybody around the league, I think, took notice of that.
Yeah.
And they started to really do these too high, deep drop defenses to really keep everything in front, make the quarterbacks be patient, and just kind of needle at the quarterback, be a mosquito, make them, they want to make these big explosive plays. Patrick Mahomes wants to be hitting 75-yard touchdowns, but you're going to make him throw a 3-yard out 20 times in a game and just make him have to be patient. Teams around this league look at what other teams are doing, what's working and what's not. And likewise, teams know that other teams are doing that. So they're going to kind of change up what they're doing. So week to week, every game is hard to win in this league because you don't necessarily know, did I prepare for the right thing? This is what I saw, but is it a mirage? Is it real? All of that. I think what the Falcons have done a really good job of with this new coaching staff is adjusting in game. And I think that gets a little bit overused is like halftime adjustments. Every team makes halftime adjustments. Nobody knows what any of those adjustments are. It's just if the team starts playing better in the second half, they all praise the halftime adjustments. Yeah. If they don't, they sit there and say, why didn't we make any halftime adjustments? All teams are doing it. It's whatever. But I think that the Falcons are doing a really good job kind of doing complementary adjustments.
Yeah.
And when you see the offense, like they did against the Patriots, miss a field goal, they're still at 0 points. Patriots now have the ball back. First play of that defensive series, blitz.
Yeah.
Get a sack, get them on their back foot. I think that Dean Pease and Arthur Smith are doing a really good job of connecting the offense and the defense and making some of these tweaks to keep these games from snowballing, which is why, the Cowboys game was a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah.
But by and large, in the fourth quarter, these games have been close and they're there for the Falcons to take. So was the Buccaneers game in week 2. Now we got to see if they're able to do that and finish against a team of a much higher talent level. But I think they're really excited for this challenge this week.
Definitely. I think one thing for me is that the time management has been very good this year compared to seasons before. I think in our last drive, I think even though we only got to like the 50-yard line, I think Matt Ryan took over 4 minutes off the clock, which only gives them 2 minutes straight away. And obviously we ended up stopping them. So that's massive. I've seen that. And then the last second field goals, I think on the games we've won this year, it's been time management, and I think that's one positive this year without a doubt. Because let's be honest, last year some of the stuff we were seeing was like, but this year I think that's a massive, especially being a first-time head coach. He's making them decisions, etc. So I think I can't complain about Arthur Smith at all this year. You can complain about certain plays, but you can complain about every coach in the NFL about that. It's his first year. He's got 5 wins.
I mean, again, and we were obviously talking off camera before we came on, and Will had said, well, I hope you don't mind me kind of quoting you, but
go for it.
You kind of earmarked about 7 wins, and at this minute in time, looking at the schedule coming up, I mean, 7 and above it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Yeah. And look, you can say what you like about Arthur Smith, and people don't understand like how hard it is to put 52 people together in a new scheme on both sides of the ball, and like I say, with a lot of rookies, and obviously the loss of Calvin as well. And I think that's what's stifling Pitts. I mean, I suppose my only point on that is you got to take a risk with some balls to Pitts at some point or other, because I think it's a little bit lazy to say, well, he's not getting the ball because he's being double covered. If he's going to be a generational talent, he's going to have to start winning them battles, for me anyway. That's really the only thing I can really have a go at him for. And if that's the worst that we're sitting here talking about without our WR1 and et cetera, I think, well, why are we searching for things to be unhappy about? Really?
Yeah.
Like, it's
because we're used to it.
Yeah, well, it's very true, very true. But no, I agree, Cal, 100%. And I said exactly the same thing when I was watching the game. Is the clock management is so much better, because when we started that drive, I think there was about 6 or 7 minutes left on the clock.
6.5, it was right around there.
And I was like, oh no. that is not the time I want to see on that clock, especially the way that they were running the ball at the time as well, the drive before. So I was like, I was getting worried, but like you say, I think it does seem like they are getting smarter and wiser on game management, and for a first-time head coach, you can't ask for anything more than that.
Mark, I love your point about the rookies and them playing more, and also, new scheme, all of that stuff, because yes, we are seeing the rookies kind of start to really get more reps, and I think the coaching staff is smart in doing that. Obviously, you would think natural tendency, bad team, you want your rookies to kind of play right away. They're high picks, get them out there, get them experience. You're expecting to be bad anyway. The Falcons were very precise in the veterans that they targeted around the league. They brought them in key areas. Adding 2 veterans at the safety position allowed Richie Grant the time to learn what is a complicated system, to get his confidence in practice. A lot of people were kind of thinking, hey, is something wrong with Richie? Like, why isn't he out there? He's a 2nd-round pick. A lot of people were really excited about him. But now we're starting to see him make plays, where earlier on when he was starting to get his feet wet on the field, I noticed some of the mistakes in those little details that Arthur Smith and I'm sure Dean Pease harps on. So that is where you're seeing a rookie. You're trying to keep them off the field as long as you can and coach those mistakes out of them before really having to rely on them. And fortunately, the Falcons weren't hit with as many injuries as they could have been, knock on wood, throughout the season. And now you've got the luxury of bringing these guys in with very specific roles that play to their skills and allow them to do what they want to do, and not have to overthink stuff. They know their role, they can play to it, and then you can expand from there this offseason. But the reason I do think that the Falcons could potentially really jump into that dark horse mode over these final few games is for that reason exactly. Everybody on this team is at some point in their learning curve because you've got new schemes and a new coaching staff. They're learning the players are learning them. Even somebody like Matt Ryan is learning the little nuances. And sure, it's probably going to take him much quicker to pick up on. I'm sure he's already mastered everything he needs to know about Arthur Smith and his offense, because that's the type of guy he is. But everybody is learning to some degree. At what point enough of that threshold hits? It's kind of like, vaccines in a pandemic. Like once you reach that threshold, it tips, and then you're kind of get the herd immunity. Once enough of these players, that light bulb goes on and they get it, and now they don't have to think while they're playing and they can play fast. This team has a greater jump in it than I think some of the other teams around this league who are kind of in the middle of the pack as well, because of that newness and of that factor. They may be a little bit behind some of those other teams in terms of their ability to play right now because they're on that learning curve, and other teams who've been together maybe 3-4 years aren't. But if they do flip that switch, I think of a team like the 2016 Falcons and that defense. The last 5 weeks of that season, that defense became a different unit than they were for the first, 9-10 games, because a lot of rookies just kind of clicked for them. And I'm looking to see if that's going to happen for the Falcons this year. I think we saw it maybe with the run game this past week. We need to see another case of that before I'm fully buying into it. But I think you're definitely seeing it with the defense. And if anything, I think that's the most exciting thing, is to see, can they actually make one more jump? Because I think we're seeing small jumps throughout the weeks. If they can make kind of like one big jump over these next few weeks, then we can really start talking about this team in the playoffs.
Like we were all saying, it's spot on, really. The fact that we're even as far as we are at this present time with the roster that we've got under new management and new coaching, we're not in a position to be complaining too much about anything. What was that, Cal?
That was a front door.
But yeah, like Cal said earlier on, if anybody said that we'd be in a position here where we're looking to progress forwards instead of just stagnating a little bit and thinking, oh, there's a hole in this part of the team, there's a hole in this part of the team. That's not the mindset that the majority of fans have at the moment in time. You're always going to have some negativity, but look how much easier we're picking out good aspects of our team, whereas the last couple of years, we've just been struggling to do that at all.
And I think one thing's worth pointing out as well. The game against Washington and the game against Carolina, right? Those games had gone slightly differently. We'd be on the same record as the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everyone, and I mean everybody's sitting here. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're as good as the Rams. That's not my point. But what my point is that, ultimately everyone's going, oh, well, the Rams are 7-3. So, well, before that shit show at Green Bay, it would have been, everyone was talking about, oh, they got the Super Bowl. So, and imagine if we're sitting here now 7-3. It's a different conversation. Arthur Smith would be fucking God, right? Get out of the way. But I think that if we're talking about those margins, right, and that's margins in year one.
Yeah.
But that's a dangerous game, I think, to be in because of those margins that you're bringing. Arthur Smith would say, but we're not 7-3 because every game in this league comes down to, the final 10 minutes of the game for the most part. I mean, what if the Cordarrelle Patterson doesn't make that catch against the Saints? What if Kyle Pitts doesn't make that catch against the Dolphins? I mean, just these different big plays that the Falcons have been making in those two games. They didn't make those plays, but they would sit there and say, we didn't make those plays. So we're not going to give ourselves a win because it felt like we should have won that game. If anything, they're going to say, no, we have to work harder because we didn't win a game that we should have.
Well, I told you I was the one for overreacting. So yeah.
But no, I definitely see the point of it. Like, especially the Washington game. That was, I think,
that was tough.
That was one where I think Twitter definitely blew up. Panthers, I think that was just complete sort of off day, and then the rest of our losses we have, apart from the Bucs game where we was in it at that point, apart from the last like 10 minutes, we got back into it, and that's something you don't see. Like last year was like blowing the leads, but this year we've not sort of blown any leads, and if we have, we've actually gone on to sort of then win the game, and I think that's the massive difference between. Let's be honest, if this was last year, we might have 1 or 2 wins. Like the Jets game in London, obviously one of the best experiences of our lives at the moment, and it was like that. And you think not in front of my eyes, like not today, but it was one of them where they stopped them, and then that's the difference between this year and last year for me.
But I think it's something that Smith says a lot, isn't it? And it's almost cliche, but I don't mind a cliche every now and again. It's you got to trust the process, right? And it is a process, and I think more. It probably sounded like I was getting a bit too big for my boots there earlier, but I think more to my point, Will, was that like if those at this point in the season where a couple of big plays in 2 games away from having a bit of a fanciful record in Arthur Smith's first year with the team that, again, offensively is probably lacking in the amount of talent we'd like to see, then that for me alone is improvement on last year.
Yeah.
I got you. I got what you're saying. It's that the team has been in position to really be a couple of plays away from being right there with the Bucs, frankly, in the division race. Being 7-3, 8-3, 6 and whatever that would be. Math is hard. But yeah, I mean, I got your point. It definitely it is a big testament, I think, to what Arthur Smith has done, and I think that. Honestly, like to hear him speak about it, like I think they are surprised in any way, shape, or form because their job is to live in the day to day, and so they can't even afford to think about. All right, well, if we had made this play and if we had made this play and blah, blah, it's like any time that they're doing that is seconds taken away from potentially uncovering a detail that could help them beat the Bucs on Sunday, and that's all coaches live and think about. But you're absolutely right. I think that he even understands where they're at talent-wise, understands where they're at kind of scheme-wise. Like he brought up an interesting thing. I think it was after the Patriots game where obviously a lot of people, and I was guilty of this as well, is we all talk about scheme like it's some mystical like potion, like like it's Harry Potter kind of like dueling against it. And it's like whatever spell you're going to pull out and the spell they're going to, and it's like everybody in the NFL kind of does a version of the same thing. Dirk Cutter used to say this to me all the time. He's like, none of it's different. Like we all run essentially the same plays. It's how you package it. It's how you call it. It's the terminology. It's what packet or personnel groupings you want to do it from. But everybody knows what is coming. Everybody has the same deck of cards. It's how you play your deck of cards. Yeah. And I think that Arthur Smith has done a very good job of using the talent at his disposal, but he's not really getting away week to week from what they want to be. He's just trying to reinforce it consistently, get it. I think the run game is, we clearly see they want to be able to run the football because it opens up the rest of their offense. Yeah. And even on days when you're seeing teams around the league, like I just alluded to with the Chiefs and what the Falcons did last year, they're clearly lightening up the boxes. They're bringing guys back. They're more willing to give up a 6-yard run than a 36-yard pass. And so I think that we're going to start see more teams around the league say, okay, we'll take this run. If you're going to give it to us, we're going to continue. If you're going to make us march down the field, let's get our run game involved while we're at it. And I really do commend Arthur Smith because it would be easy for him to say when things weren't working early on, all right, we've got to just start force feeding Kyle Pitts, or we've got to just start doing X, Y, and Z. And by and large, he's kind of stuck to it. And now I think we're going to see that start to pay off because they've gotten the reps necessary to really be proficient. at that wide zone, at the inside gap schemes, like what they want to really do is their bread and butter. And that's also really exciting.
It is. Whilst we're on Pitts and everyone like that, let's break down some players a little bit. So one person that obviously we couldn't do a show without talking about at the moment in time is Patterson. What happens to Patterson going into next season, though? Can you pay him? Can we? Out of all teams, is that a thing? Because I can't imagine our offense even functioning without him at the moment in time. Admittedly, you're going to have draft picks thrown in there and everything, but he's doing 3 jobs in 1. 4.
Put him in safety the other day for 1 play.
They did.
We did say we would see it.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of that actually depends on Cordarrelle Patterson. And I kind of get the sense based on his social media, but also don't read into that too much, because what player is going to be like,
I hate it.
Yeah, good team win today, man. Traffic sucks here. Nobody's that state tax. Kind of, Florida's looking good, but nobody's ever going to say it. It does seem though, and I kind of hearken this back to Devin Hester when he came here in Atlanta. A big part of the reason why he really liked being in Atlanta, even compared to Chicago, while he was in Chicago, he always wanted to be a bigger part of the offense. He wanted to be a receiver. He wanted to get the ball in his hands more, and Chicago was too focused on him as you're our weapon as a special teams player, that they'd never really kind of granted that wish because they didn't want him to get hurt. And he came to Atlanta, boom, got really involved, had 670 yards or whatever, was still a good returner, all of that stuff. The fact that the Falcons and that Arthur Smith have been the team to unlock Cordarrelle Patterson, and that he's so late in his career as it is. I mean, he's 30 now. He doesn't have that many. He's maybe going to get this last contract. Yeah. And if I'm him, I'm thinking about, okay, I've been with 5 different teams. He's got a lot of experience to compare this year to. Yeah. And so I would be more willing to kind of stay with a team where I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be featured. I'm sitting here with the chance to make a Pro Bowl as a wide receiver or running back or whatever. I like to play football. So why am I necessarily going to go to even another team who's going to say you're going to be the focal point of our offense? Okay, but do I trust you to actually use me in the right way, to really rely on that? Or are you still going to want to motion me out as a wide receiver? Because the Falcons are putting him in the backfield. They're handing the ball off to him. He's a running back in this offense. I think he likes that. I think that's kind of the ace up the Falcons' sleeve if they do get into any type of financial thing. I also think they'll just be able to probably afford him if they really want him. I mean, they can make that contract work out. The contracts are hocus pocus. But I think that's kind of the underlying question for trying to get Cordarrelle back is, if he really wants to be here, it might not be all that hard for them to get him back and at a pretty team friendly deal.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've seen loads of discussions going on Twitter about it over the past couple of days, and I completely agree. I mean, he like you say, you can't read too much into social media, but he seems to really dig the city, which, I mean, as somebody who's been to Atlanta countless times, I can totally understand why. He's loved here. And it doesn't really make a great deal of sense. I don't really understand it. 31 maybe next year. Where'd you go that you're going to really be a focal point of the offense like you would be here? And again, because I don't know whether you call him a vet yet, but he's not going to command a huge salary, I wouldn't have thought. I mean, I can't see him as the kind of guy to really go diva on us.
Yeah.
So, I think that's absolutely right. And also, I think Terry's sensible. So, he's not going to go to him and go, "You've been the focal point of our offense here. He has $20 million." I don't really see that happening. I think he'll go, "Look, we really want to keep you. We think this is a really fair offer. We want you to be part of the scheme. You've been amazing for us this season." And, like I say, I think it makes sense for everybody involved, because he has been around and nobody's, like Will said, unlocked what he's got.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be satisfied with that. It's just, there's always that little bit of, doubt in my mind about our ability to retain players when they've had such a good season. But I suppose as long as you can see the progress in the team as well, we are selling him a bit of a project, because he'll look at this team and go, oh, we've actually been that successful in the first year in a new scheme, and I'm playing like this, and I'm one of the main man, but one of the main men.
But even if there is a slight amount of regression from the immense production that we've seen this year, right?
Yeah,
he's quite obviously an influence in that locker room already. If you look at his mentions on social media, everyone across the NFL loves the guy, like everybody. And it's like, so he's obviously going to be good even if we reached a position where we gave him a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal, and in that last year, we only used him on special teams, he would still absolutely have a role to play within the team. So it doesn't really feel like, even if there is a little bit of regression, like if we're still improving on the offensive side of the ball, it's not, look at the amount of money we've paid some people over the years. For God's
sake. That's the key point. Is I would say that, honestly, because I hear what you're saying, Danny, with you don't want to let somebody who you have in house necessarily walk if you think they're a good player. But I would say that I think the Falcons kind of got themselves into the financial trouble that they're in because they were unwilling to let some of the guys walk coming off of good years. I think the Devontae Freeman deal that they did, probably in hindsight, not great. And then, when you sit there and you've got to, in kind of back-to-back seasons, pay Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Jake Matthews, Deion Jones, Grady Jarrett, all of those guys, at some point you've got to say no to somebody you want in order to have the flexibility later to add somebody you need. And the Falcons haven't been willing to do that. I would also say, and I'm all for bringing back Cordarrelle Patterson, because I have eyeballs and I can see what he's doing out there. But I would say that if I was going to build an argument for maybe why they don't necessarily need to overpay for him, and I do think, the market's probably going to be pretty competitive for him. I mean, if you're another team out there, why not try to get somebody like that on your roster? I would say that I think that we need to consider the fact that nobody else has been able to get this out of Cordarrelle Patterson. So maybe it's not so much the player as it is the scheme and or the coaching staff and their creativity or ability to identify what it is that makes somebody good. Like they clearly took, hey, this guy's a great kickoff returner. Let's just put the ball in his hands and give him a 4-yard head start and let's see if he can make some plays. And he can, because he has the vision to do that. So we're not even going to try to put the ball at risk by throwing it to you down the field. We're turn around and hand it to you, get going. And it's just whatever that is. I am now starting to trust Arthur Smith's ability and Terry Fontenot's ability, because it's what he did at New Orleans. Yeah. It's what he did in Tennessee, is maybe getting somebody undervalued, overlooked, bring him in, jack him up, get him to be really productive, and then figure it out. So if they have to move on from Cordarrelle, I would be very interested to see how they go about replacing him. And you could say Mike Davis obviously hasn't worked out. So, you're not going to hit everything, but that would be an argument to maybe not overpay him, because they've shown in the past the ability to maybe replicate some of this.
Yeah.
I think a big part of why Terry was hired has to be Arthur doesn't, as in Big Arthur, doesn't want the franchise to make any more stupid mistakes, and it's not as if they didn't stick with Dimitrov and give him a fair crack of the whip, and like you live and die by your decisions, right? And ultimately this whole new start under this whole new regime, it's just what I keep saying to people. You've got, I'm not passing judgment on Arthur Smith or Terry Fontenot until they've got a clean checkbook to start making their own decisions, because what they've inherited is it's eye-watering. It really, really is. So, like, come on now. I think they Terry's already proven that he's willing to make decisions that okay, we might not like with certain players. Like there were some players that we really didn't want to see go, but he's willing to do that for the good of the longevity of the franchise. And that to me, rather than Thomas Dimitrov just paying everybody, like it just seems more sensible.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Will, I'm just cautious of time a little bit, just in case you want to jump out before we start a new segment, or if you're good for a little bit more. I was just watching, thinking.
Gotta hop off, but I really appreciate you guys having me on. It was a great conversation,
on, mate, as always.
Glad I could do it after a win.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we didn't do the last 2 weeks. Let's stick with that. But no, thank you for coming on, and we'll try and talk again soon, hopefully after a Bucs win, but we will see how it goes.
Nice to meet you.
No problem, guys. Anytime. Good to see you, Mark.
No worries, mate. Thank you.
Bye.
Right, whilst we're stuck with us three for the remaining 5-10 minutes of the show, Mark, this is one that's going to grind on you a little bit. We're all Matt Ryan stan accounts, and I know we are, but a little bit of drop-off in form in the last couple of games.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think for me, the offensive line is still awful. And I think you if you compartmentalize it, Matt's had some bad games this year. I'm not going to shy away from that. No. You know how much I love the dude, but also one thing that I see, which you don't see in other aging quarterbacks, or one thing I don't see that I do see in aging quarterbacks is you look at Big Ben, who's now like a car wreck, right? And that guy. I mean, that guy's got a lot more protection, a lot more ability in his protection than Matt's got. And the guy's still throwing every ball either into the floor or into the other team's hand. And Matt just seems still to have that footballing knowledge. I don't know whether it's the scheme. I don't know whether it's maybe the fact that, Gage, Zacchaeus, are they completely working for him as well? WR2, 3 at best. Would we even put our hands on our hearts and say that we'd have them as 2 and 3? I would say no.
I don't think we have a wide receiver 2 at all in the franchise. I'd say you're looking at Ridley as number 1, and obviously he's not here. But I wouldn't say
we were hoping for more from Gage this season, right? I mean, even as a proposed WR2. Now, the likelihood of it is, let's be honest, him and Ozzy are potentially gone at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Which boys, that leaves us with, as much as I love him on social media, that leaves us with Frank Darby and not a lot else. So there's going to have to be a plan, and I don't know whether we address that as we just get a couple of vets in or to fill a hole. I don't know, or whether we go ahead and draft some more wide receivers. That for me again doesn't really necessarily solve much of a problem. I think that there needs to be some clarity as to what's happened with Calvin. I get that. He absolutely needs a space, and I hope he's, on the road to recovery. But he's on a contract here as well, so literally we could be left with no wide receiving core. And to kind of go back to your question, am I surprised Matt's not necessarily firing on all cylinders? Not usually, because he's not got a lot. So I think it's answerable. I don't think he's without blame, because I do think that there are a few questionable flaws going on, but I still don't think that O-line is anywhere near what you should have if you've got a 37-year-old quarterback. 36. Sorry.
What's wrong the O-line a little bit?
Well, they swapped him, didn't they? They played Dalman and Hennessy sort of throughout the game on different plays. But they obviously knew what they were kind of doing. That was the plan going into the game. they obviously had something behind it why they did it, but that doesn't help Matt either, does it? You're changing your centre every couple of plays.
Well,
I think overall the O-line against the Jags weren't that. I think that's the best game out of the last three, which obviously not that hard because the other two there was absolutely there wasn't even there, to be fair. But
I think we have to kind of maybe drag that back a little bit though. So I mean the Jags pass rush isn't amazing, and even still, I mean I think I go back to what I said earlier on, right? We've done pretty well this year against badly coached teams, and those teams that we have beaten, I think their O lines probably are as well not as questionable as ours. So look, they've got to get better. You know, Mayfield, etc. You know, they can only get better, hopefully. And I think I don't know. It's almost as if we get a win and we go, oh, maybe it's the O-line's turn the corner, and then we and then the Patriots coming down or whatever, you know. And it's a really, really hard one because all I want to see, and it's probably a pipe dream, I know, all I want to see is Matt Ryan play a season with a full, proper, decent O-line.
Oh, he's going to, but he's going to be 47 when he does it. That's the only problem.
So yeah, I don't know. I just like I'm struggling with it a little bit because I do go. Has Matt just forgot how to pass the ball, or is he not confident in those boys that are in front of him? And I mean, changing the center, it's weird, but if it helps from play to play, then in my mind, if you're running a certain kind of play and you change the personnel, is it that difficult? I'm not sure it is, because if you know you're running a certain kind of play, then you know, oh, he needs to be there, not him. I think Matt's got the football and nuance to be able to deal with that. I think it's just overall the lack of dog and the lack of fight in front of them.
I think with the wide receivers as well, it's like they never seem open. Like they don't. You can tell that's why the WR3s and 4s really, or 5s if you want to put one that back. But you don't see like they have much space, and the person who actually creates more space is Sharp when he comes on, and we usually put him on a third down because he's not the answer.
So how does passing get open and nobody else does? Like, and we've seen it when CP was out, right? Like when he was out, we had nothing, and it's like, I don't know if that's down to the scheme or whether they're actually just our receivers aren't very good.
Yeah. And it's just gapping quality, surely, because like you said, Patterson's a man that, he's got a lot of talent and everything like that, but he's brand new to what he's doing for us right now, in theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's playing it like
but he's been in the league 10 years. He knows he's a footballer man. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing, is he's such a scholar of the game because he can play in two positions. Do you know what I mean? Two big positions as well, and be able to do that week on week. So, like, I mean, you could say it's an experience thing. You could say that, or the guy's just got an ability that Arthur's been able to unlock, and he hasn't been able to unlock in OZ and Gage. And I don't know. I still see flashes from Gage, and I go, okay, but again, I'm not going to pay you. Because I mean, it doesn't really make a great deal of sense. So I think there's a couple of pain points, but I still think the main pain point for me is in the O-line.
Yeah, without
a doubt. With Gage as well, wasn't he a second round pick as well? And it was like
from LSU, wasn't it?
Yeah. So obviously the draft next year for me, it's got to be the defensive side of the ball. In the first round, I think it's going to be. I don't think.
Yeah, but is it?
But it's not.
I don't know. Davis from Georgia is. Every time I watch him, I seeing him next to Grady. It would be something out of this world. I think that on the defensive side of the ball, and look, it's just my opinion, but on the defensive side of the ball is where this draft is at its strongest. I think there is such defensive talent coming out of this draft. I think we'd be foolish to maybe just take the best in the position that we need. I mean, we've seen it with Marlon Davidson, right? Who I was really high on. And, he was probably the best, maybe second best in the defensive line position that we needed. So we took him, and it turns out maybe that wasn't the right one, when actually there was a lot more quality in that draft elsewhere. So I don't know. I just I think this draft coming up, you're right, is so important. And if we're looking at where we need to improve next year, well, I mean, how many times you boys tweeted it? Sometimes that defense looks shaky. I know they're better, but it looks shaky because there's certain positions that we're limp on. And actually, there's been certain times in some games where I just think you're looking for a stop.
Yeah.
You just need the offense back on the field because we're chasing the game, or we're trying to run the clock, and you need. I don't know. I again, pipe dream, but we haven't had a good defense in so long, long. Be nice, wouldn't it? Be nice.
I think
be nice to go. Here comes the defense, and us go. Oh well, it's all right. We can stop somebody now.
I think that the problem is with the defense again, which is the same as last year. The defensive line and the linebacker, we don't get to the quarterback at all at times, and that's where the secondary gets battered all the time. And it happened last year, and I think, but it was one of them drafts where there wasn't the right sort of defensive line to take. It was just one of them. If we had a Chase Young there, it would have been but I think so. That's got to be first round for me. Even the first couple of rounds, you could see it. But then it's safety position as well.
And I'd like to see a really strong edge. There's again this draft is really, really defensively strong. And I've tried to I've been watching quite a few and looking at a couple of mock drafts and stuff, and it all is so defensively focused. And I think if we can maybe use this draft as the draft that sorts out the defense, or and then use whatever money we've got to pay a couple of outcast / vet wide receivers to keep us going next year, and then obviously 2024 is when we finally got money, baby. So and
fucking lifetime away,
Well, it's not. Is it really? It's not
in the scheme of things. It's not.
I think Matt has a good point.
That's when Terry gets a checkbook.
Yeah. I think Matt has a good point with Patterson being physicality. He's quite big at that. I think with our wide receiver Gage, he's not big. You've got Ridley. Obviously, he's not here at the moment, but he's not a big receiver. Obviously,
he's tall, but he's not as bulky. But then again,
so you've got Pitt, but obviously he's a rookie. You can't. People are expecting fucking miracles off him straight away. But I think we are missing. Like you say, I think we'll draft a wide receiver next year. I don't know, it'd be later rounds, maybe 4 or 5, maybe. Yeah. But I think if we get some vets in, I think it'd be quite bigger guys to go along with what we already have now, if they stay. But
that makes sense. And there'll be plenty hitting the market. Yeah. It'd be quite interesting to know actually who hits the market next year. Because one thing that Terry said when he was talking about quarterbacks, and I think it's quite a sensible way of looking at it, is they were like, oh, why did you do quarterback visits with Trey Lance and I don't know who else it was. Might have been Matt Jones. So anyway, so we done these quarterback interviews and they were like, well, you're obviously not going to take a quarterback, so why did you do the interviews? And it's like, well, we need to know things about these kids for 4 or 5 years' time when maybe they don't get signed on by or for whatever reason, etc., you know. And I mean, that's brilliant, because that's how we, you know, that's how an organization should evaluate talent, which could come to the open market at any time. You've seen how many franchises just put players on the trade block because they've gone, do you know, it is, fuck it, boys, we'll tank. And you should always be ready for that. And I think we need to. We don't see blockbuster trades in Atlanta. Not since we did not since we went for Julio. So, you know, I think it's going to be interesting, maybe what we do with that next year, because I think we get a bit more money than we had this year. Not a lot, but a bit more. So, does Matt restructure his deal? Does Grady restructure his deal? Because that kicks a bit more money down the road.
Yeah.
Well, Debo as well. Jones, I think he's up to paying, is it 20 million? I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's obviously.
I suppose the argument is, if you kick a bit more you kick a bit more money down the road with Matt. I mean, the QB class in this year's draft is not strong. It's not. To be honest with you, I would be hugely surprised if we see more than 3 quarterbacks go first round this year, because it's not all that. So, you know, do you just say, well, actually, you know, I mean, look at, I'm not comparing before anyone decides to jump into the chat and try and lynch me for it. I'm not saying, but you know, you can be a quarterback in your 40s and still win games. Yeah. So, you know, do we kick the money down a little bit more and extend Matt and just build around it? I don't know. That to me seems a more sensible way to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because otherwise next year we could just be in more or less the same position.
Yeah. I think the problem with the draft at the moment in time is we're not really on course for a top 10 as it stands either. And I know you've talked about depth, and I don't want to jinx anything, touch wood, but we're not on course for the same sort of pick that we've had for the last couple of years. So it makes it just that little bit more interesting, where we're going to have to fiddle about.
No, I mean, realistically, I mean, you say that, but realistically, we'd be in the same sort of position if we carry on how we're going on. We'll be in the same sort of position we were in 2 years ago.
Yeah, I suppose so. Sitting at the middle of the pack, really, aren't you? You're probably sitting at like 15th, give or take.
And look, the Patriots were sitting in the middle of the pack last year and ended up Mac Jones.
Yeah.
As much as it pains me to say, the kid deserves Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying that about an Alabama quarterback. Never mind the New England Patriots quarterback. Right? but it's true, right? And you have to give credit where it's due, right? So I think the draft's always a lottery. It doesn't matter. I mean, we took McKinley in the first round.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. We took Grady in the fifth round. So again, the draft is very much a different kettle of fish. I think the way that we've always operated has been, Thomas Dimitriev's gone. We need people at these positions, so let's just go out and get the highest PFF rated one.
Yeah.
And let's just hope for the best. I'd like to think there's more of a process. I really don't think that anybody in their right minds at 4th last year would have picked anyone other than Kyle Pitts. I still see that being a success. I think that he's just getting swarmed at the minute, but I stand by what I said as well. I think Matt needs to start taking a few more chances and letting Pitts dog it a little bit.
Yeah, I think
his first year,
I think they're protecting him a little bit, if I'm completely honest. I don't just mean physically, I just mean they're protecting what he's there for, because obviously he's come with such high expectations, and it's probably safer to, it sounds wrong, but like lower our expectations a little bit, and then let things into him.
I said at the beginning of the year, I'm in a big group of big group of my pals. We've all got fantasy league, and and my mate was, I'm taking Pitts, and I was like, okay, cool, and he was like, well, maybe you could trade me for him. I was like, well, no, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that he's going to have the impact season 1 that everyone thinks he's going to have. I think he's been pretty good for a tight end so far. I've got no worries about him whatsoever. I still think he's going to be generational talent, but again, you don't want to be throwing him balls while he's double covered and ended up getting his legs snapped or whatever. It just really doesn't make any sense. You don't want his head to go down. No. So yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of finish that point, draft's going to be interesting, but I'm gonna pick my hill to die on and say we need to go after some of these defensive talents in this draft.
Definitely.
Okay.
I think with the draft as well, I think you could finish. I think it's going to be close anyway with the amount of games. Like you can see the NFC side, which I think is quite a poor year. We're only one win away from.
Could we say poor? Could we just? I mean, I think it's hugely competitive because everyone's
balanced.
You
could probably say that.
Everyone's beating everybody, aren't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the difference. I think the AFC is stronger for me overall.
Yeah.
Still, but the NFC makes it competitive. And one point I wanted to make is, I've been a supporter for like third season. I think Mark's fourth or fifth. I think
fifth. Yeah.
Fifth. I mean, I've never seen us by this time going into December and we have a chance at the playoffs. You can't complain, really. The first time I'm not going to say we're going to make the playoffs. No, I'm going to say we have a chance. Absolutely, because teams, like Mark said, teams are beating other teams. I can personally see another 3 wins, which would put us on 8 wins, which is 8 and 9. And to be fair, with how the league going, our side especially, you could still get the wild card place.
So if you see, so let's have a look, right, while we're on, right? So if we see our schedule for the remainder of the season, right? So we've got Bucs, Panthers, Niners, Lions, Bills, and the Swamp People, right?
So are we breaking down game by game wins and losses?
Well, I mean, just look at them, right? So we've got 6 fixtures, right?
Yeah.
Now, for me, Bucs, I don't think we come through that.
No.
Panthers, I think we do, especially if Cam's in. How amazing is it that he's being proven to be an absolute fraud of a footballer? How many times have I told you all he's a fraud of a man? Right, so
I know, but this is where we clash because I fucking love him. not as a player. I just love him. I love his person.
Okay, yeah, we definitely clash. I think he's a moron. So let's move on. So I think we come through I think we beat the Panthers. I think we beat the Lions. I'm not sure about the Niners. They're such a weird outfit. I think that could go either way.
Yeah.
And I think we do the double over the Saints, right? So that's 3, potentially 4, right? Whether the Niners turn up or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, if we're sitting at the end of the season on 9 wins, right? And I know 9 wins is aspirational, right?
Yeah.
And I get that.
Oh yeah.
But you're in the playoffs.
That's probably our ceiling, isn't it? That's probably
yeah. I mean, even in a best case scenario, there, right? That's 10 wins, right? So if someone sent you at the beginning of the season, you're gonna be sitting what is it? 10 and 8?
10 and 8, yeah.
10 and 8, right?
What? 10 and 7, 17 games.
Oh, 10 and 7,
10 and 7, right?
Yeah.
So again, I know it's aspirational, right? But I mean, that's a pretty good return. I mean, even 9 and 8 is still a winning season. Yeah. And to get Arthur Smith in a winning season in his first season as a head coach with this team devoid of talent. I mean, I'm sorry, we can't complain. We can't.
No,
we should.
No. I don't even think even if we lowballed it a little bit and we were
say 8 and 9.
8 and 9, 8 and 9. I'd still be very, very satisfied because not only for wins and losses is improved. To achieve that, we've seen significant improvement. We will.
Our teams will be
double last year.
Exactly.
Double last year.
And as you've said, that's with a roster that is nowhere near not even near the top half. I don't think there's individuals But as a whole roster,
Depth-wise,
it's so shallow.
Like when we get an injury, that's like when Patterson was out for like a game and a half. That was it. We scored 3 goals.
I think one of the
Well,
things to bear in mind as well, right, is my experience as a Falcons fan is always, I don't want to lose that guy, but he's up next year. And my experience has also always been, it's all right. Thomas Dimitrioff has paid him 5 times what he's fucking valued at, right? So, and then I go, yay. And then I realized 4 years down the line, that was a really premature yay, right?
Yeah.
So if next year, right, well, realistically, what contract worries do we have right now apart from CP? Really?
Not a great deal.
No, a great deal, right? So now is a better time than any to go, well, if we finish the season on 8 wins, double on last year, with a potential of a winning season, right? And no contract worries next year. All right, we haven't got a load of cap. I understand that.
Yeah.
That's Terry's job, right?
Yeah.
We have another successful draft. We pull in a few more vets, hopefully to the tune of CP84.
Nice.
then we're going into next year going, hang on a minute. Playoffs are more than an expectation. Sure.
Yeah.
So
without a doubt, if that scenario was to happen, if we hit 8 next season, I want double figures, comfortably into double figures as well. I want, like, now it's 17. I want
especially looking at our division, because I'm sorry, right? The Bucs' luck is already starting to run out, right? And I know it won't run out against us. Don't get us wrong, right? But Brady's been mediocre to okay this year, right? Panthers, fucking love it, love to see it. And the Swamp Monsters as well, exactly the same. I'm sorry, but watching the Saints this season has been marvelous. Just watching them implode, right? So our division is again next season wide open.
Yeah.
So like I just, and I know I keep saying this, but I just think there is so much to look forward to over these next 2 years. And I'll be honest. You know me, right? I was hyping up at the beginning of the season. I thought we were going to fucking Super Bowl and all sorts.
Fucking hour, I don't know what you're on about.
but realistically, we all said, and I remember sitting on that first call, all I want to see is improvement. And we have improved whether we want to admit it or not. We do, obviously, because we're optimists for the most part until we're watching the game. And then, but we know we sit in a pretty difficult fan base, but I think everyone's the same. I just don't think everyone likes to admit it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
People don't being like, I'm obviously like more negative than Danny, but I'll come on here, but I'll still be positive. Like there's certain things like people don't want to be positive about.
Cal, you want to try being a Newcastle United fan all your life, son? You'll get used to it. Don't worry.
But I don't. Everyone's negative and. They should be. You can't just be positive all the time, but you've got to be then take the positive. It's like the Jags game when we mentioned, you only beat the Jags, but we've got to win. What do you want us to do? Go and lose it? You have fickle fans everywhere. Every fan base has that.
That's it. That same Jags team had Buffalo scoring 6 points against them.
6 points, and we're playing the Bills this year, and I don't think
the Bills have been up and down. And listen, before this season, Josh Allen was the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
And in big games this season, as soon as there's no plan B, he's gone missing.
That's fallen off. Absolutely.
So, and this is what I was saying earlier on, boys. It's been a hugely, hugely competitive season. Everyone's beaten everybody. And, everyone goes like any given Sunday or, whatever you want, whatever bullshit cliche you want to put on it. This is a great season because there's no front runners. None. I mean, Cardinals started really well, succumbed to injuries. Green Bay looked really, really strong, but Rodgers is a dick and seems to, and always seems to somehow throw a game away late in the playoffs, which is mad, but he does, right? I mean, I would have put all of my money, which isn't a lot, but on them beating the Saints last year, and they still managed to fuck it up. So like anything can happen in these playoffs. So, playoff football is so different from regular season. So
imagine before we finish it now. Imagine the scenario of going into the 8th game, winning. You get the playoffs. You couldn't ask for
No, because if that scenario happens, there's only one outcome.
You can't put us in that level of euphoria. Because I'd have to book the next day off work. I'd be absolutely.
I'd be having a week, mate. Fuck it.
If we won one way or the other, but I think if we, like Mark said, I don't think we'll beat the Bucs. Panthers. We always usually split with the Panthers anyway. It was usually 1-1, so I think we'll do that.
What the shit?
But I think Panthers are probably up and down at times. McCaffrey started off really well, and then
McCaffrey's out now. Right? I think where I worry with the Panthers is Cam's ability to run. Because we don't seem to be able to have an answer for QBs running. And I think we've seen that in the Philadelphia game quite a lot. But even in the Jags game, when Trev got on the run, he managed to get through quite a few times. So I think that, again, that's a worry. But, it's no more of a worry than I have against any other team. And I don't know. I think we've got to make sure that whatever happens this Sunday, and I'll always be optimistic, but I think we just need to get through this Sunday, and if it's an L, swallow it and just get ready for those last 5 games of the season, because there's a lot to play for. And there is part of me that goes, but if we get in the playoffs and a draft position and stuff like that, but at the same time, I think
I've never seen us in the playoffs either. So the excitement of getting even that one game, and most likely we'll be the 7th, we'll be this last seed, won't we? So we'll play the 2nd seed, which could be Cardinals, Bucs.
Well, we were just talking. If we go 10-7, then maybe not.
I don't have that much optimism, but I think if you finish 8 and 9, you have a chance of the playoffs. You might miss out on another team being like 8 or 9, so it'd be like a divisional record, which could end up with a decent.
You go into that game with the same. We'd have the same expectations.
Yeah.
So I just, and like I say, playoff football is different. So the first season that I've seen us in the playoffs, we played I think we got beat off the Rams. I might be wrong.
Got beat off the Eagles, didn't we, in the NFC Championship?
Yeah. And it was like in that on the lead up to it, and we were throwing bombs and we played really, really offensive football. And then as soon as we got to the playoffs, it was kind of like no, let's kind of dial it back. So it does change things. I'd be interested to see if how we play changes that. But let's, like I said, I mean, we asked for improvement. We've seen it. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that's a line that can finish the show, to be fair, because then we can't get dipped into any more negativity. Nothing like that. Job's a good one. We've covered the Bucs enough. I don't think we should be dropping score predictions, because every time we do, they go to fucking shit anyway. So we'll call it a night. Mark,
33-31.
If that happens, I will get a tattoo live on the next show. Fuck yeah.
What did I? Oh God! Well, I'm not mentioning mine. I said if we reach the playoffs, I've got to get a tattoo on my ass.
Of coup. Specifically, so that's in black and white, so you're not avoiding that.
I mean, if I tell you what, Gal, if we reach the playoffs, I'll get a tattoo as well, just not on my ass. I think tattooers still already have enough experience tattooing pigskin.
Right, lads, we'll wrap it up. Thank you everyone for watching as well, and all your comments. We didn't get them all up because some of them were directed at the scoreline of 28-3 and stuff like that. So I left them ones off the screen. Fuck you all. But no, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for your comments and everything like that. And hopefully touch wood, we will be back soon next week with another show of a win. Maybe I don't know. Why not? We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we'll wrap it up for the night and catch you all soon. See you later.
Cheers, everyone.